Eli's horse stumbled over a jagged root, hooves kicking up a spray of dry dust. The smoke curl ahead wavered in the heat haze, thin and silver against the dying sun. Eli nudged the horse forward, eyes narrowing through the brim of his hat. Something moved by the broken fence of the old Sutter homestead. A shadow crouched low. A little girl, small and tense, pressed herself to the earth. Her hands clutched a pistol too large for her fingers, shaking as she balanced it on the edge of a shallow grave. The ragged blanket over the body moved with the wind, revealing a face pale and still. Her mother. Don't come any closer," she whispered, voice raw, trembling. "She ain't cold yet." Eli lifted his hands slowly, showing no threat. "I won't hurt you, kid." His voice was calm, measured, though his pulse thumped against his ribs. The heat pressed against him, and the cicadas buzzed in tense rhythm, like the drumbeat of some old warning. The girl's eyes, wide and dark, didn't blink. They were fixed on him, sizing him, daring him to cross the line. Eli dismounted, boots cracking in the dry dirt. Every step was slow, deliberate. Dust clung to his coat and hat. "You can't stay here alone," Eli said. "Coyotes come at night, and the wind carries worse than that." She shifted the pistol, aimed steady but untrained. I'm staying." "Kid," he said softly, crouching slightly to meet her gaze. "You're coming with me." Now, the wind picked up. The blanket fluttered like a flag, revealing the outline of the mother's small, shrunken hands. The girl's grip tightened on the pistol. Her lips quivered, but her eyes glimmered with some stubborn spark Eli hadn't seen in a long time. He knelt slowly, never taking his eyes off hers. "I know you're scared. I've seen loss, kid. I've carried it for years. But it won't be the end of you. Not out here. Not today." Her fingers itched on the trigger. The sun burned low on the horizon, casting everything in gold and shadow. Time seemed to stretch. Cicadas hummed, dry wind whistled through the skeletal trees, and the silence of death pressed down on the homestead. Finally, she lowered the pistol, trembling hands barely holding it. A single nod, small but firm. Eli extended his hand. "Come on, kid. Let's get out of here." The girl hesitated, one last glance at the body. Then, slowly, she climbed onto the horse behind him, arms wrapped around his waist. Her face pressed to his back. Eli guided the horse forward, dust rising in a long golden plume behind them. The Sutter homestead faded behind the ridges, a shadow of grief left behind in the desert. Eli didn't speak again until the wind carried them beyond the last ridge. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "We'll fix this, kid. Somehow we'll fix this." Clara's hands trembled as she held the reins, knuckles white. The horse shifted beneath her, snorting and pawing at the dry dirt. Eli rode beside her, eyes scanning the horizon where jagged mesas burned orange in the late afternoon sun. Every shadow seemed to whisper threats. Every gust of wind carried danger. "Don't grip it so tight," Eli said. His voice was low, steady. "The horse can feel it. You'll spook him." Clara's words caught in her throat. She swallowed hard. "I don't want to fall." "You won't." Eli's gaze softened, but the muscles in his jaw stayed tight. Years of caution didn't loosen just because a child clung to his back. "Just ride with me. Feel the rhythm. 1, 2, 3. The horse walked steadily along the narrow trail. Dust rose behind them like smoke from a dying fire. Clara's breath came in shaky bursts, the scent of sweat and horsehair thick in her nostrils. She glanced back toward the ridge where the Sutter homestead disappeared. The grave, the blanket, the stillness, it haunted her. "You lost your ma to sickness, didn't you?" Eli asked without looking at her. His voice carried more than curiosity. It carried understanding. Clara didn't answer at first, just hugged herself tighter against his back. They took her, fever and the outlaws. Her words tumbled out in a rush. "Dane Maddox. They were after us. She tried to hide me, but she choked, the words failing. Eli tightened his grip on the reins, jaw clenched. "I know, kid. I know." They rode into the heart of Broken Mesa, the ranch sprawling between red cliffs and dry riverbeds. Horses whinnied from the corral. A creaking windmill turned slowly against the sky. The scent of hay, leather, and earth filled the air. Clara's legs shook as she dismounted, barely able to stand. "Eat something," Eli said, motioning toward the cabin. He watched her hesitate, then step inside. Plates clattered. The fire hissed. The warmth pressed against the chill of grief still clinging to her. Night fell hard. Clara sat by the window, staring at the stars. The desert was alive with sounds, coyotes yipping, the wind rattling the canyon walls, distant hooves echoing. Eli crouched beside her, cleaning his revolver. "They're still out there," he said softly. Clara flinched. "Maddox and his men. They haven't forgotten you. But neither have I." Clara's eyes widened, searching his face. He didn't look like a man who'd scared anyone, but the weight in his stare told her otherwise. "You'll teach me to fight?" she asked, voice small. "I'll teach you to survive first. Fighting comes later." Eli reached into a chest and pulled out a revolver wrapped in oilcloth. A faded badge slipped from the folds. Clara's fingers traced the metal, eyes wide. Eli didn't explain. He simply placed it beside her and nodded. "Some things you can't unsee, kid. Some things you learn when the dust is too thick to see the sun. But I'll make sure you can stand when the wind howls, no matter what's coming." Outside, the desert whispered. Somewhere, distant, a rider kicked up dust. The game was far from over. The wind shifted, carrying the metallic tang of gunpowder before anything else. Clara's heart hammered in her chest as she crouched low behind the storm cellar door, fingers clutching the revolver Eli had taught her to load. Dust swirled across the yard, weaving between the barrels and fence posts like ghostly fingers. Eli moved silently along the ridge, scanning the horizon. His hat brim shadowed eyes that had seen too much, eyes that weighed every ridge line, every shadow. A tumbleweed rolled past, kicked by the wind, a messenger of what was coming. "Stay down," Eli whispered, barely moving his lips. "Watch the gaps. Listen to the wind." Clara pressed her back to the cool stone of the cellar, ears straining. The first dust plume appeared far off, then another. She counted 5 riders, each one a black silhouette against the shimmering heat. The creak of leather and the clatter of spurs carried faintly over the dry earth. Eli crouched behind a fallen fence post, hand resting on his rifle. His fingers brushed the worn stock, a silent rhythm of readiness. He had walked this path before, in years that felt like lifetimes ago. A shadow of the past hovered in every heartbeat. The riders slowed, scanning the valley. Maddox's voice carried, sharp and mocking. "Eli Cartwright, thought you'd hide behind your fences. Didn't figure you'd be babysitting." Eli's eyes narrowed. His hand rested lightly on the revolver at his hip. "This isn't a game, Maddox. You came for revenge. You'll leave in a pine box." A sharp laugh cut the air. Maddox spurred his horse closer, dust rising in his wake. Clara pressed the revolver tighter, remembering Eli's lessons: steady hands, slow breath, focus on the target. The wind shifted again. A dry rattling of debris echoed off the canyon walls. The horses sensed it too, stamping, snorting. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Eli whispered to himself, low and steady, "Show me what you've learned, kid. Keep your eyes open. Keep your heart steady." He moved to the center of the yard, slow, deliberate, hat low, revolver ready. Maddox's gang fanned out, circling, their presence a dark storm over Broken Mesa. Dust rose in thin columns, twisting like smoke, carrying the scent of iron and sweat. Clara peeked through the cellar cracks. Her knuckles were white. Her breaths came in short, shallow bursts. Somewhere deep, she felt the pull of fear, but also something Eli had planted: courage. She adjusted her stance, eyes following every movement, every shadow. The sun burned low, casting long orange streaks across the mesas. Tumbleweeds rolled past, and somewhere a hawk cried, high and unbending. Eli's hand rested on the trigger. The ground beneath his boots was hard, dry, unforgiving, but he moved like a ghost, waiting for the exact moment. And then the silence broke. A single gunshot split the air, echoing across the canyon. Dust swirled violently, and the battle for Broken Mesa had begun. Gunfire cracked across the yard, splintering fence posts and sending horses rearing. Dust stung Eli's eyes, sweat trickled down his temples, and the acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air. Maddox's men fanned out, bullets kicking up sparks as they tore through the dry dirt. Eli moved like a shadow, low and deliberate. His revolver barked, precise and relentless. One man went down, then another, their cries swallowed by the roar of the desert wind. Every shot counted. Every breath was measured. Clara crouched in the cellar doorway, the revolver shaking in her small hands. Eli's voice cut through the chaos. "Now, kid, step up." Heart hammering, Clara ran from cover, sprinting toward the barn. Maddox lunged, knife flashing. She froze, terror gripping her. Eli pivoted, rifle cracking. Maddox stumbled, blade clattering to the dirt, blood blooming across his chest. The remaining gang faltered, hesitation breaking their rhythm. Eli's eyes burned with a memory of his old life. The Hawk of Abilene wasn't gone. He moved with the weight of every outlaw he'd faced, every life he'd sworn to protect. One by one, the gang fell. Dust clouds rolled across the yard like waves. Horses reared and bolted. The desert seemed to hold its breath as the last man went down. Maddox coughed, staggering, clutching his wound. He grabbed Clara, yanking her toward the corral. Panic surged through her, but Eli didn't flinch. He sprinted forward, boots kicking up dirt. "Let her go." Eli's voice thundered, low and lethal. Maddox twisted, knife raised. Eli fired. The bullet tore through Maddox's sleeve, grazing Clara's cheek before finding its mark. Maddox's knees buckled. Dust and blood mixed on the ground. He fell silent, and for a heartbeat, only the wind whispered across broken mesa. Eli stumbled, clutching his side. Clara dropped to her knees beside him, eyes wide, fingers pressing against the wound. "No, don't leave me," she cried. Eli smiled faintly. Sweat and dust streaked across his face. "You're safe now, kid. Keep riding, keep living." His fingers trembled, slackening on the revolver. The sun bled into the horizon, casting broken mesa in gold and shadow. Clara held Eli close as his breathing slowed, each inhale weaker than the last. Around them, the desert was still, the gunfire faded, leaving only the echo of what had been survived. Years later, they say she grew into the girl who could ride with fire in her heart and justice in her hands. Some say she stayed on Broken Mesa, waiting for the day the Hawk rode again. But every soul in the valley remembers that day, the day a rancher found an orphan by her mother's grave, taught her to stand, and faced a storm of vengeance. The day Broken Mesa became legend. The wind still carries the whispers, the echo of boots and spurs, the crack of a gunfire long gone, and the story told by every old hand in the saloons and canyons. He found her. He raised her. And together, they survived the desert.